Jane, thank you so much for chatting with me today. You were an accountant before starting your first business and then before starting Showpo. And I think the initial feeling of kind of getting your degree, starting to work in that sort of field and realize that that's maybe not for you is something that a lot of students can relate to.
Mm.
What was the initial feeling for you when you kind of were coming to that realization of like, oh, maybe this is not my path forever?
So I basically it took me a long time, maybe like 2.5, 3 years after working as an accountant, after pretty much finishing my degree, in like my what did I do? Commerce. And I went on exchange to Sweden, and that was when I think it does sound like a cliche, like I went and traveled and found myself. But I mean, I've previously, have traveled and, went to South America to have and Europe to have fun. But actually living in another country and like being part of a whole different culture, I think it really opens up your mind to thinking like, wow, the way that we're doing things, the way that these things are done isn't the way that it has to be. It really then I don't think it wasn't like I didn't even realize while I was overseas, but I think slowly it kind of shifted my mindset to being like, wow, this isn't the be all and end all, like having this degree, having this job. I mean, as an immigrant that moved here when I was 8 from China, all I wanted and all my parents wanted for me was financial security that came in the form of a job security and having a good job. And then when I actually had it, I mean, I probably did love it at the time, but then when I came back from being on exchange, I kind of saw things differently. I looked at my job not as financial security. I looked at it more as a prison sentence, and I knew I didn't want to do 40 years of hard time in accounting. So I knew I had to get out, and I didn't have any other ideas of what to do. I think that was the first little wave of entrepreneurship that hit Australia. I had friends that were interested in it, and we kind of all talked about it, and it just kind of grew from there.
How did you build your confidence, especially when you're still figuring things out, to actually, put your ideas out there and then also kind of stand firm with them and sort of say, like, no, I'm confident and I know that this idea will work?
No, that's a really good question because I actually didn't have the confidence for so long. So I think it's like, I think lots of people probably us listening thinking that they don't have the confidence and maybe that means they're not the right person. But that's just, I don't think it's easy to have that confidence at the start. So basically, I have this memory of my high school best friend said, my mom lost 5 kilos from drinking oolong tea. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. Like, that's not what I'm here to talk about. So don't, not giving medical advice. And I was like, wow. Like, and it's Chinese herbal tea. I'm like, wow, we could probably sell that. Like, we should go to the market. This is before, I think this is before T2 was big. And I was like, all we have to do is package it up really pretty. How tea is so cheap. We should go to Paddington markets, and which is like quite fancy. Like, and then we can sell this tea. I was very adamant on saying like, let's not tell people it's our business. Let's just say we're working for some rich old man, and then we're setting up the stall because I don't want it to fail and for it to, come back to us. And so that's like, I had such a big fear of failure that I had to pretend this business idea I had was for some man. And then that night, I spent all night writing up like, kind of like what I thought was a business plan. It would have just, would have been very basic. And the next day, told my friend, I was like, look at this. She's like, oh, I thought we were just like, it was just chit chat. I'm not starting a business. I'm doing a law degree. And so because she didn't want to do it, I didn't have the confidence to do this by myself. So I didn't do anything with it. So basically, how I even got into fashion was because I was talking to this girl who at uni who wanted to run a pop-up store, and that was her business idea. And I was like, you know what? I don't have any better ideas. I do want to start a business. Let's just do it. I'm keen. Let's go. And we started running these pop-up stores inside bars. So basically, the idea was like, think about a bar that's like busy on a weekend, but free during the week and then also during the day on a Saturday. So the Art House, which is next to Pitt Street Mall in Sydney, um, that was the perfect location. So we set up essentially a market store. Anyway, long story short, I thought that was just a way to get the ball rolling, and I started building an online store. So I spent a month building this website, and when I finally showed her, she's like, you know what, Jane? I'm sick of the startup lifestyle. I'm sick of being broke. I'm going back to find a corporate job. And then, and I was like, are you sure? Just look at this website. I've already built, I spent a month on this. And she said, I just don't think anyone shops online, okay? Like,
Oh,
yeah, she's like, look, Jane, no one shops online. And then she's like, let's close the business down. And I did not have the confidence to run this business by myself. So we closed it down and the business failed. So I completely understand what it's like to not have that confidence. Oh, and obviously a month after she said that, I started Showpo and started selling clothes online, proving her wrong. But even my Showpo business partner, after a year and a half, decided she didn't want to do it anymore, and that was when I was like, you know what, I'm all in. I'm gonna do it by myself. So that took
wow.
me that in my.
3 times.
It took a while. So
And I love that from the 3 times you were kind of trying to build like a business, a lot of that came from your time in uni or, kind of in school. How, like, I don't know if you would consider it networking, but how important is kind of building those relationships? How would you say we should start building our networks when we're still at uni or TAFE or even in school?
yeah, I mean, it's so crazy that like you don't think it's really anything, and then I look back at people I went to uni with, and we're all old now, and we're all adults, and we all have serious titles. I'm like, where did this come from? But it's got to come from somewhere, right? Someone's got to be it. So it is really important to like go out there, meet people, network, and it's not too late. I would say I probably did it quite late. So I think anyone who's listening being like, oh, that's not me. I think I like really came into my own after high school. And then when I started working in a cadetship, after I went on exchange, it kind of brought out more of my confidence after I started my business. So it's like, it's not too late. You don't want to pick too early either. So don't worry. I think that was my biggest thing. You know, in high school, there's like the prefects and they're always, everything's going, and not to nag on anyone who's a prefect who's listening, but then, I feel like anyone who's not might think like they don't have the opportunities that, they don't get the opportunities. But I feel like there is still, life is so long. You've got to play the long game, and you're actually, everyone who's a student is so, so, so young. I think that's probably my biggest advice, just to like, you can constantly reinvent yourself. You can keep trying new things. You can keep trying the same things that like, because you're like changing and developing it so much at that point in your life.
Yeah, and I love what you were saying earlier about how when you were kind of like talking about starting your business for the first time, it was like that first wave of entrepreneurship in Australia. I think that's totally flourished now,
Yeah.
and students are actually considering entrepreneurship as an actual like career and actually thing that they want to pursue. And I think it's great that we're such go-getters. What's an underrated piece of advice that you wish someone gave you when you were in that stage?
Oh, that's a good one. Um, it's interesting you say that also, because I remember when I was going on exchange and I was looking in other universities in Europe, and they all had entrepreneurship courses, and I couldn't believe that we didn't have any. And every university had that. Never know what doors will open. And it's crazy. I think in your 20s, it's all about saying yes, and in your 30s, it's all about saying no. So just jump on any opportunity that comes your way right now, because in your 30s you won't have the luxury of being able to. You have to get really good at saying no then. Oh, and then okay, I have a piece of advice. Don't worry too much about money. I remember when I was 21, 20 something, and then one of my friends, I mean, this is very anecdotal, but like there was like this guy who was like saving up, buying apartments. He's probably doing really well right now. But then we spent all of our money traveling and just living life. And now I'm like, honestly, those life experiences got me to where I am today. Even if it's going overseas for a travel that isn't necessarily like starting a business or whatever. But like, I just think people, yeah, that's the stuff that you can't get back. So yeah, don't worry too much about saving money when you're young.
I think we're the same person. Like, because my parents are always giving me grief. They're like, "Oh, you need to buy a house. You need to like find financial security." And I'm like, "I want to go to Europe. Like, I don't want
Yeah,
to You're never going to remember the house you bought when you were 23 when you're
Exactly.
dying. You're going to remember that time you were like trans, like driving all the way across like Japan or something.
Exactly. Exactly.
I want to talk to you a little bit about your Future Female Founders program. I'm sure, like, in the startup phase of your business, you would have gotten not grief, but maybe kind of like people just not believing in you and just not thinking that you'd be able to do it, and kind of maybe even bringing the fact that you're a woman into that. What's something that you want the individual who's going to be part of this program, what's something that you want them to come out with at the end that maybe you didn't get in your journey?
I yeah, I want them to feel really like empowered that they can do it. Like they are like, well, first of all, that if they've come out and they've been chosen, I feel like that is a great sign of validation from from another business. But I think it's also just like it's just so I guess scary to be trying to compete like to enter like the big business world out there and thinking like you don't know much, but I think what I like to be able to take away is that like you got this, you know? Like actually I actually think like when they come to well see what we're doing, it's like, okay, it's just problem solving. It's ultimately problem solving. We're doing it at a larger scale. And it's also has all started from essentially what they're doing right now. And you know, the problems that you've got later in business, you'll work your way up to them. Like it's all a stepping stone from one place to another. And so I to be able to like I guess see like a path of like that can like excite them from about their own business journey.
I love that. Oh, no, I really appreciate you making the time to chat with me today, Jade. It's been so nice.
That's all. It's great to chat to you too.